What's up, everybody? It's Ned Bellavance, Ned1313 on Twitter, and welcome to the Daily Check-in for July 13th, 2020. It's Monday, and that is Professional Development Monday. And I'm going to take a break from my Python project because honestly, I haven't had time to make any progress on that. So I don't have anything to report. And instead, I want to talk about the concepts of career capital and career context. And if those don't make sense to you right away, that's okay because we're going to get to that in a moment. Before I do that, one housekeeping item. My One of my other podcasts, Day 2 Cloud, we've got a new episode this week and it's all about Grafana. And I had no idea what Grafana could do, or I'd only dealt with it very on the surface before. And we actually really got into the weeds with one of the VPs at Grafana, talking about what it does and how it works and how it relates to other monitoring and data analysis tools. And it was actually a really cool conversation. And it wasn't about selling Grafana because it's an open source tool. It was more about like, what is this thing for and why would we use it and where does it fit in the tool set? So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to tune in to this week's episode. It publishes on Wednesday. It's all about Grafana on Day 2 Cloud. I'll include a link in the description. Okay, with that out of the way, let's check in. How you doing? Monday? Did you have a good weekend? Get anything interesting accomplished, or did you actually get to relax? I hope you kicked back. Maybe you had an alcoholic beverage of your choice, or if you're not a drinker, maybe you had a nice satisfying smoothie. I don't know. Whatever works for you. There was a giant meetup for the one of the Google developer groups in Europe, and they did a 2-hour study hall for Terraform, and I helped sponsor a little bit of that, and I hope it turned out well. If you attended that, I'd love to hear about it. How did it go? I wasn't able to attend because family obligations, but it sounded like it was pretty cool. And there was something like 2,000 plus attendees, which is like a lot. And anybody who attended apparently got to take the certification exam for free. They got a voucher. So pretty cool there. If I'd known about it sooner, I would have promoted it on here on Terraform Tuesday, in fact. So let's talk about the topic at hand, which is career capital and context. I'm going to go in that order because I think it makes sense. So this all came together because I just recorded a podcast with a good friend of mine, Sam Erskine, on Day 2 Cloud, and we were talking about growing your professional career. And he has a really good presentation he's given before about like 5 steps to career advancement. And in that, there's like all these great concepts he's embedded. And one of them is career capital. And we unpacked it a lot in the podcast. That'll be up next week on Wednesday. But I did want to dig into some of my thoughts about it. And maybe this serves as a bit of a teaser. The idea behind career capital is it's capital that you've accrued over time that no one can take away from you. So, what does that look like? Well, it could be technical skills. It could be that you've learned how to set up Active Directory. It could be that you've learned how to program in Java. It could be any number of different things that you've built up over time. And these are things that would be of value to a future employer or just valuable to your career. Now, the nice thing about career capital is when you leave an organization to go to a new one or, go out on your own, the capital follows with you. That's not something a company can take away from you. They can have your title and they can have all the work that you did while you were there, but you walk away with this breadth of experience that you gained while you were at that company. And that's really important. If you wanted to bulk up on your career capital really fast, one of the fastest ways to do it, at least in my experience, is through consulting. So I worked for a consulting VAR for 6 years. And in those 6 years, I learned probably what would have taken me 20, 25 years working in a normal industry job because I was stretched across so many different disciplines and I was seeing all of these new rollouts and new technology because you hire a consultant to do something you can't do in-house or you don't have the bandwidth to do. So we got to see all these new and interesting projects and I got to learn a ton. So if you're looking to really bulk up your career capital, consulting's not a bad way to go. The other thing is that they usually pay for you to get certified. So that probably leads me down the next thing, which is you can build up this capital, but it's not something visible. People can't just look at you and be like, oh, that person has thousands of dollars of career capital right there. It's not obvious. It's not like your pockets are bulging with gold doubloons or something. you need a way to prove that you have that career capital. And part of that's word of mouth and reputation. So people just get to know you when they go to a new company and they remember you. If you're looking for a job, they might go, "Hey, I know this awesome person who would be, perfect fit for this job." So that's one way to do it. Another way is through putting yourself out there as a public persona. And you've heard people say build your personal brand. I don't really like that so much. You're not a brand. You're a person who has skills and wants to work in the tech field. But there is something to blogging and certifications and doing videos and doing stuff on GitHub to build up a public presence that someone can reference. It's not a destination necessarily, but it's a way when they're investigating you, you crop up on searches and they can find your content. One of the reasons it makes a lot of sense to do blogging still today is because blogging is something you control and it's not something that's going to disappear because somebody else decided to take it down. If you write for one of these other platforms like a Medium or something like that, you don't have as much control over that content. And if you're putting your thoughts out there through something like Twitter, well, anything that's more than like 2 days old just goes down the Twitter hole and it's gone. Blogging is a way to have a certain amount of permanence. And YouTube is, because video is engaging, why am I doing this, right? It's another way to engage with people. So that's a way to prove your career capital to other people. GitHub is great too. I mean, if you're a developer, it's great. But also if you're not a developer, you can put writing up on GitHub. You can actually kind of host your blog site on GitHub. You can contribute to open source projects for documentation. You can build out an infrastructure project. Like there's a lot you can do that's not just writing code on GitHub that helps you build that sort of online resume. Now, it's not just technical skills. Those are important, obviously, to your career capital, but there's also soft skills that are a little harder to prove through this. You can show your communication skills by being an effective blogger or an effective vlogger or whatever you want to call it. That's one way to prove those skills out. But there's also the soft skills that get around things like abstraction and being able to understand the why of something and not just the how. And that's probably another important distinction to make. Technical skills teach you the how sometimes, and how's important. You need to know how to do a thing. The more important question is why, the why of what you're doing. And the example I would give here is if I gave you a step-by-step recipe on how to make something I made last night. I made pork ragu. It was delicious, by the way. Really enjoyed it. But if I gave you step-by-step, but didn't explain the why of any of it, you'd know how to make that one recipe, but you wouldn't know how to expand that to other similar recipes. Because I understand the why of why I'm doing some of the things in the recipe, if I want to alter the recipe or if I want to apply similar techniques to a different set of ingredients, I can do that because I understand the whys of what I'm doing. And that's really important when you're building that career capital, is understanding the whys, because that helps you gain additional insight when you're thrown at a new problem. You can use these familiar tools to dissect it. So that's career capital. I did want to get into context a little bit, and wow, I'm already at 9 minutes. But so context is important because you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're talking to when you're looking for a job or you're starting a project or you're interacting for a new engagement or something like that. You need to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand how they're viewing you and how they're viewing their current problem. If I walk into a room and I just assume that everybody already knows the work that I do and what my core competencies are and what my skill set is, then it's going to be difficult for some people to understand why I'm saying the things I am, because they might not have that background of information. They might not know that I've, wrote a book on Terraform. If I start talking about Terraform, it's like, what are your credentials? Why are you telling me this? So you have to bring a little bit of empathy and understanding to the context that someone's viewing you as. Now, the average person is probably not going to have seen all of your projects and read your books and everything like that, or seen your blog posts. So you can talk about those, and it's not bragging if it's true. But you do have to remain in the context of the conversation and bring up things that are relevant to what that person needs. So if you're let's say you're going to interview for a job around Windows Server, it probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to bring up your breadth of experience using Photoshop. Doesn't really make sense in the conversation. And yet I've seen consultants do this when they go out to meet with a customer. They'll bring up totally irrelevant work experience as a way of establishing their credentials, and the customer does not care. The way to build up context and the way to build up empathy is through active listening. It's probably a topic for a whole other video, but at its core, the idea is when someone's talking, rather than thinking about how you want to respond to what they're saying at the moment, take a moment to actually listen to what they're saying and try to process it from their perspective. Once you've done that, now you can formulate a response. But the thing is, they might not be looking for a response. They might be looking for affirmation. They might be looking for insight. Or, they might just want to complain. And all of those are valid. And you have to understand kind of where you are in the conversation. So that's a little bit about context. There's probably more to talk about there, but I think I've reached the end of my time for today. So those are my thoughts. Tomorrow's Terraform Tuesday, and I've got a good one lined up. Someone sent me a gist of a configuration they were having trouble with. I'm going to troubleshoot that tonight and hopefully have a really interesting Terraform Tuesday for tomorrow. So that's all coming up. Until then, thank you for watching. Stay healthy and stay safe.